Hi there, welcome to this week's episode of The Heart of a Youth Leader. My name's Andy Castle, founder and CEO of Thrive Youth Ministries based in the Midlands in England. Worship is so crucial for keeping our faith alive, isn't it? Keeping our eyes fixed on the Lord and singing his praises. The scriptures, the Bible is full of stories and full of encouragements of singing new songs to the Lord every day, to be wrapped up in our worship of him, to declare his goodness. And I've just been wondering, as youth workers, as youth leaders, we're often the people who miss out on corporate worship in our church life, because we're the ones who have to go out with the children, go out with the young people in the service, to take them to another room while the adults carry on in worship. Even when we start with everyone all together in some of our churches and there's a couple of songs of worship, but we're really kind of thinking about what we're going to do next. We're thinking about the first activity or the practicalities of the session, or we're just thinking, have I got everything ready? We're kind of waiting to be told you can take the children out now. Or in a church I was a youth worker, that we started with the young people with us and they came to us instead of gathering in the church, which was kind of good because it meant that the children and young people weren't sent out of the church. And I always think that was a funny thing for us to send the children out of the main worship. It's almost like, you don't want to be here, go and do something a bit more interesting, which kind of communicates what we're about to do is going to be pretty dull. And I've even heard vicars say that you'll find this really dull, you're much more interesting in the hall. And you're like, well, that's no wonder why we struggle to retain young people and to young adults. If they've been told growing up that you'll have much more fun in the hall. Anyway, the problem is, that's another issue, that the concern I have is we as youth leaders and children's leaders, we don't get to worship with others very often, especially if we're a church with only one service and we're employed to be the children or youth minister, youth worker. And therefore it's an expectation that we'll always be out with the children. When do we get to worship? And that's when, time off is so important that we can go elsewhere. But also not feeling guilty about rotating yourself to have a Sunday when you're not out with the young people, but that you actually get to worship. And it got me thinking, though, about how important worship music is to us, how important to be daily singing a new song. And I was reading Psalm 89 this week, and it starts by saying, I will sing of the Lord's great love forever. With my mouth, I make your faithfulness known through all generations. I will declare that your love stands firm forever, that you have established your faithfulness in heaven itself. And it just reminded me, when life's tough, you need to worship. When life is challenging, you need to sing. When life is good, you need to celebrate. When life is a series of forks in the road, you don't know where to go, we need to declare his faithfulness, that he's led us to this point and he's going to lead us to the next point. I will sing of the Lord's great love forever. And the encouragement for this week is to find your favourite worship songs, to listen to them daily. If you play a piano or guitar or any instrument, why don't you make it a thing to use the instrument to worship in your own private worship times? Or maybe gather your family together, or your friends together, or your housemates together, and just sing a song or two of worship each day. To sing of the Lord's great love forever. That's what we should be doing. And the more we worship, the more we feel God's goodness. the more we realize we're part of something eternal, the more we realize how wonderful our Heavenly Father is. And the more we sing of his love, the more we recognize and we feel that sense of his love for us. And I love that the psalmist says, with my mouth, I will make your faithfulness known through all generations. The more we worship, the more we love God, the more we talk about him, and the more we're going to talk about him with the next generations, the young people, the children that we lead. And being passionate about someone, being passionate about anything is far more exciting to hear someone talk about than someone who isn't very passionate and they're just kind of talking and going through the motions because that's what they're down to do. And you can tell a mile off, can't you? Someone who's really on fire for the Lord and someone who's just reading off a piece of paper. So let's be excited about telling the next generations of the Lord's faithfulness. It means reminding ourselves about God's faithfulness. How has he been faithful to you over the years? And it's so good to look back, isn't it? And I look back on my life and I see so many times when God has stepped in. I look at the way he led our family from London to the Midlands in quite remarkable ways. When he led us to what we thought was going to do one thing and that fell apart. And then he clearly led us to start, thrive, and to be dependent on him. And as a family, we had to have a conversation about, we don't know how the Lord's going to provide, but we think this is what he wants us to do. Shall we do it? And the children who were just primary school age at the time being like, yeah, let's do it. Of course, our youngest was a mere toddler, so he wasn't engaged in that conversation. But then for our children to see how God has faithfully provided over the years for our family, how God has taken Thrive from being just me to a team of 4 or 5 people. And who knows what he's got for us next. We've got a double-decker bus that proudly has Thrive written over it, which is like a mobile youth centre, completely bonkers. And my eldest son, when he saw it, just went, Dad, this is just so crazy to think of you in our little spare room trying to get Thrive off the ground. And now here, there's this bus declaring God's goodness to the community. God's faithfulness needs to be declared. It needs to be talked about. We need to tell others, but I think we need to tell ourselves first. So why don't you spend some time this week reminding yourself of God's faithfulness to you? Why don't you find your favourite worship song and sing it at the top of your voice? You don't have to have anyone else listening if you don't want to. But we need to sing of the Lord's great love forever. We need to declare with our mouths his faithfulness, that we will share that with the next generations. And if you're a parent, if you're a dad or a mum, make sure you're telling your kids about what God has done in your life, why you believe in him, why you follow him. They don't need all the rules. They need the experience. They need to know what difference following Jesus has made in your life. And we need to tell that with them so that they too will choose to follow him. The psalmist goes on, I will declare that your love stands firm forever. Declare means we've got to speak with our lips. We've got to tell the truth of actually having a God whose love doesn't waver. Having a God whose love is always there for us. No matter what we do, no matter where we go, no matter how many times we trip up, how many times we actively sin, God's love is firm forever, and that he's established his faithfulness in heaven itself. And that draws us into that beautiful relationship with him through Jesus on the cross, that we are washed clean of our sin, that all the purposeful turning our back on God, we can have all that removed, and we can be in perfect relationship with our Heavenly Father because his love stands firm for us forever. So today, as you hear this, please hear, wherever you are, whatever's going on in your life, God's love for you is permanent for eternity. He is here for you forever, no matter what's happened. And he wants to forgive you of everything that's been going on. And he wants to pour out his blessing on you because he is a faithful God. He is a loving parent. And he wants to cheer you on in all that you're doing. So sing of his great love And let's tell the next generations of his faithfulness in our lives so that they can be inspired to trust him and his faithfulness in their lives. Have a great week. Go for it.